All right, so I'm going to be doing a talk through of tone shaping. And the reason I'm doing a talk through instead of a sound demo is because what I'm going to be talking about is something that is much more feelable and noticeable when you are actually playing than I think will translate into audio recordings. For instance, feeling dynamics, you don't know what I'm doing when you listen to a clip. Feeling the way EQ reacts to your playing, how you can pull more lows, pull more high, you can control things. That's something you can kind of only describe or feel for yourself. It's very hard to capture. So I actually want to be descriptive here because I feel like a lot of videos, you listen to clips and you're like, I don't know what that's like, and then you have to try it and then you like it or you don't. So not that my descriptions will let you know if you like it either, but that's what I'm going to try to do, and there's so many pedals here. So I'm going to divide these into categories. We're going to do kind of 18 volt tone shapers, then we're going to do 9 volt tone shapers, and then we're going to kind of move a little bit more into compressors, which are also tone shapers, and then at the end just touch on drive a bit, drives as tone shapers. Okay, so the reason I'm starting with 18 volts is because I've been doing this for weeks now. I've actually tried some pedals that aren't here that I'll speak about, and I've just found that 18 volts really offers something that I can't be without at this point in terms of tone shaping. It has all of the 18 volt pedals have this kind of clarity, aliveness, kind of a three-dimensionality. They feel like a real instrument. They feel like you're listening to a violin or an acoustic guitar or a reed, and you're getting these nuances and dynamics, and things come through in a way that they don't on 9 volts. Now 9 volts has its place. It has its kind of pedal sound. It's actually a sound that people may like and you may actually prefer in circumstances, and I actually prefer maybe in certain circumstances. So let's start with these 18 volt tone shapers. So we're going to be looking at the Caline 10 band, the MXR 10 band, the Earthquakers Devices Tone Job, and the ThorpyFX Team Medic. Caline is priced at high 40s, so under $50. MXR is $150. This Tone Job is, I think, $170 or $180, and the Team Medic is $300. And this only runs at 18 volts. This runs at 9 or 18 volts. These two actually have internal voltage doublers, so you put 9 volts in, but they run at 18 volts. This one can actually take 18 volts as well if you want to put 18 volts in, but it'll be the same as if you put 9 volts in. This one, you can only put 9 volts in. As far as shaping ability, the Caline and MXR have obviously the most range and capacity because they have so many bands that you can impact. Apparently they are the exact same internals aside from the voltage doubler in here. So to me, this one is the obvious choice because it can run at 9 volts and because it's a third of the price, less than a third of the price. I also prefer the way the LEDs light up. These are blinding. These are blue and very bright. These are actually easy to look at. But they both sound the same. They both sound really good. Very quiet, very good units. So actually, this is kind of the cream of the crop. If you want tone shaping, boost, and the ability to tone shape and boost, this would be the cream of the crop. Now, of course, there's something like this, which we'll get into, which has presets, and it's digital, but it's 9 volts, it's digital, so it has some fallbacks in terms of sonic ability, but obviously you can have multiple EQs, whereas this one, it's one at a time, right? Now, the Tone Job at 18 volts sounds fantastic. It sounds just as clear and pristine. I love the bands they've chosen for bass and treble. And the mids is nice too. Of course, you don't have as many options, but setting it is kind of easier. You only have these kind of 3 ranges to play with. So, and it takes up a little less space, even sideways. It's a little thinner than these. So if you want something a little simpler, although you do have to have an 18 volt power supply for this one, whereas here you don't. And again, this one runs at 9 volts, and you don't need and it's in a single pedal size. Now this is a fantastic pedal. It adds something right away, even with the band straight up. It actually adds this. I was trying to match it, and this is basically what it is. Now, don't think that it's adding actually +6. Both of these are not, this isn't really +6 dB right here. It's more like +2. The faders are easy to use, and you can dial in, but the throw isn't exactly, you know, even. It's totally usable. It's actually designed in a way that I like. Anyway, so this has a kind of tone shaping off the bat, which is incredibly beautiful, especially with amps like Fenders at, you know, clean, semi-clean, low gain breakup, even mid gain. It's just beautiful. It adds this life. It's kind of like an always on would be great. And it also has a boost side, which can add up to 20 dB of boost. Right under here, there's a trim pot, and you can adjust how much boost you want. That's actually a new addition to the pedals that wasn't there in previous builds. So you can have kind of just an EQ here, or you can have it boosting, and then you can have this one add more boost. Further, the boost side, so this is gain and this is volume. On the when it's non-boosted, they are the same thing. It's just, think of it as two ways to increase your volume, and it doesn't matter which one you're turning. When you're on the boost side, it seems like past here it starts to add a bit of grit. So if you wanted the boost side to have a little bit of, it's just ever so slight compression, kind of the mildest of clipping. You could go like this and go like this, and on this side it would be, you know, the same as doing this. It wouldn't matter which one's higher or lower, but on this side you'd be adding a little bit of, just a little bit of, whatever you want to call it, slight dirt. So that's a kind of cool feature. The EQ, the treble is, which one is treble and which one's bass? I forgot. Yeah, this is treble. The treble is in a really nice range, probably 5K. It's very similar to this one. The bass is a little more subby. So it's probably more in the, you know, it's probably right around here, the 6.2.5 range. I do not like the mids control. Unfortunately, the mids is really odd. It's very overpowering, and it's in a range that I just don't like, so I keep that straight up. You could bring it down a little, but bringing it up, it kind of takes over, and I don't like that sound. Finally, the Team Medic has, as well as the Fat General, has the best buffer I've ever heard. Seriously, I don't like buffers. I always have problems with buffers. I feel like they compress the sound a little. They add a little bit of highs they kind of, you lose the dynamicism. These buffers it's just like plugging right into your amp, except it keeps the signal alive. And really fantastic. So this one actually has a switch inside where you can turn the buffer on and off. The Fat General doesn't, but we'll get to that. So really great buffer. The only buffer that I've heard that gets close is the Zio, and that would just be kind of, you know, at unity on the cleanest one, the FET. This is kind of this was the first buffer I found. It's true bypass, but when you turn it on, you can use it like a buffer that I found that I could actually handle. And then I found this, which is phenomenal as a buffer. So there you have these options. So most versatile, least expensive, right? This is a sixth the cost of this. This one does have the boost. It does have the buffer option, but it's not as flexible. You can't make this sound like a Caline or a Tube Screamer. You can't, the mid boost in it, you can't do all the sorts of things you can with this, but it does have a beautiful sound, and I think a lot of people would try it and be like, oh my God, I never want to not use that pedal. You can get a very similar sound out of this, because you can tweak ranges, or this. Okay, so now on from 18 volts to 9 volts. And again, the biggest difference to me is that there is a kind of, it's like you're narrowing the dynamic spectrum, and therefore you're also narrowing the way transients, the way like certain frequencies can come out freely. So there's kind of a clipping, squishing in 9 volts that you might not realize is there until you try 18 volts. And you might not realize in a room, but if you get detailed with headphones, you're going to be like, oh wow, it's totally obvious. And then it changes the way you play and the feel. So out of these 9 volters, they're all good. No problems with any of them. The Zio, I would say, has the most pristine capacity on its JFET. It's a really good 9 volt pedal. Now I would say actually this, which is only $30, this EQ7 also is very good. It has a lot of tone shaping. It's not quite as clear and pristine as the Zio, but it's up there with the rest of these guys. And it has a lot more tweakability. It has level here, and it has 7 bands. And you can really dial in great sounds with it. The one thing I don't like about it is the throw. Like, most of the range is right in the top here. So it's very tweaky and very hard to get exactly where you want it. But once you get it, it's like, oh wow, it totally works. As opposed to this, where I feel like I could put it back to center and refine the sound very quickly. It would take me a lot longer with this. Or if I like kicked it by accident, I'd be like, oh no, I lost my sound. Of course, it is itty bitty, and you could have, at $30 or whatever, you could have 3 of these. So you could have 3 different pedals. So this is a kind of awesome thing. It would be really cool if it had like a little cover. So, I'd get it where I wanted, and then it would be untouched. This would be my second favorite. Staying over here in the 9 volters. It just has that pedal sound. It sounds like a 9 volt pedal, but I like the range. I like the feel of it. I like the design of it. Very cool. Second, this would probably be my favorite, although it doesn't have much EQ ability. It has certain set EQs. And you may really like a setting on here and then just kind of keep it, and it has a little bit of high-end roll-off, like you're getting a longer cable. It's a really nice unit, the Zio. So these are my favorite 3 out of these 9 volters that we're looking at right now. This is fine. Didn't notice anything wrong with it. Didn't love it in any way. This, I don't love the bands where they are, but it's fine. You can get good sounds out of it. Good enough. These 2 boosters sound pretty similar. This has a little bit of a pumpy sound in the lows, and this has, you can roll off the highs with a dip switch, or you can put it into this like crazy driven boost mode, which I wouldn't use. And they're fine. Now, here we go to the EQ2, which is a whole nother deal. So it is 9 volts, so it does have that kind of limitation. It does sound like a pedal, like if you just go clean, true bypass, and then you turn it on, you can feel the difference. And it also is digital, so there's 0.6 milliseconds delay in it, and it's digital. It's converting analog to digital and then digital back to analog. Now, is that noticeable? To me, yes. The delay, not so much. Usually they say it takes, 5 milliseconds before you start to notice delay. So this is like 0.6. So that's, like a 1/10 of the way there. That doesn't mean that, apparently, if you stacked 10 of these, you'd start to notice it. The digitalness of it is interesting because it takes the sound, and then that sound, it's so pristinely edited inside of it that it does kind of sounds a little more hi-fi, but it's also limited. It's also got that 9 volt kind of limit to its range. So it's hard to describe. You can get very good sounds with it. It's very accurate. It's very tweakable. It has presets. If you're gonna use any of the 9-volt pedals, it's really great. And it depends on how you feel with the feeling of digital. Again, it's minor. Anyone who plays through any digital pedals or plays through modelers, maybe you have a sense of what that is. But for what it is, it's fantastic. It's at 300, I think. No, it's like 280. You know, so what it offers and what it does is incredible. You can run multiple EQ shapes. You can you could also like plug in a wah to it. It has a tuner. It has a limiter, like a noise gate. You can limit, which is a little bit of compression so that it doesn't clip. And I think it's fantastic design. I just, you know, I have these fantastic amps. The Tone King is upside down. You know, Twin Sister, Sir Hedgehog, PT15. Those are, and I have a Marshall 2204 from 81, but it's still that pre JCM 800 build. And I notice when the amps are getting kind of altered. And there are things that I do that I choose to alter, but I don't want kind of things that are introduced that I can't control. And I feel like that happens with a lot of the 9-volt pedals and happens with the EQ2, also because it has this digitalness to it. A lot of people don't mind it or even like it or don't notice it whatsoever. So that's really up to you. For me, I'm not going to be leaning on this. It just does too much for me in terms of altering the feel. Okay, so let's move over to, so this is kind of like an in-between the compressor and EQ shifters, or tone shapers. It is a tone shaper, but also can do compression. Unit 67 by DryBell. A lot of people love this pedal. It sounds really good. It is a 9-volt sounding pedal. It has, let's see, if you don't use the range and you just use this, the boost, the lows and the highs, it's very similar to the Micro Amp Plus MXR. Now you can use range, which this Naga Viper, it's a range master style thing. It boosts kind of the highs and mids in a certain way. Think Brian May Queen, that's the ultimate example. The Naga Viper actually has where you can alter that range. This is kind of, I think, classic, and then this is, you're getting more lows. This is volume, and it also has gain in it. This is actually a really cool pedal. You know, for driven amps, it kind of pulls them together in a really cool way. So this actually has that, and it does a great job with that. And it also has compression. It has kind of 2 levels of compression. This is more squishy, think, you know, more on the way to a Dynacomp. Like, I can hear the compression, whereas this is more adding sustain, and then this is like the level of the compression or the mix of the compression. So this is a really cool pedal. It sounds really great. It has one issue for me, which is the buffer. It has a buffer. You can't bypass the buffer, and I don't like the buffer. I don't like almost every buffer, so I'm really picky with that stuff. The buffer here, it's not too brittle, but it definitely compresses, and it actually adds a little grittiness. Since I can't bypass that, and I tend to use only a few pedals, like 3 pedals. You know, I'm not a big amount of pedal person. I don't want much between me and the amp. So if you had a looper, you could use this, or if you like, I'm sure there are people that would like the buffer, because buffers have quality to them, right? But again, this is 9 volts, so the buffer in here has a thing to it, and anyway, that's why this doesn't work for me ultimately, but it is a really cool sounding unit. It does a lot of cool things, and I know a lot of people love it. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love it if they haven't tried it. This is the Bogner Harlow. It's similar in that it's a tone shaper, booster, and compressor. It actually is a really cool sounding pedal. Again, has that 9-volt type of sound. It has boost, which really just elevates your volume right from here. So it starts almost boosting. Tone is in a nice place. The compressor feels good. You can just add a little bit and you get that sustain, or you can squish more. Very cool pedal, only $79 from Sweetwater. Usually it's like $180, so that's a good price. I didn't talk through all the prices here. 32, this is a little over 100. These are like both 120. This is 100, this is probably 50. This is, I got for 180, but usually 200. This is probably 30. This, I don't remember what the price of this is. It's probably in the 250s, I would guess. Okay, so now we've gone into compression, and then we're going to go further into compression. So Thorpy Fat General, Suhr Woodshed, Rivera Sustain Shaman, the Diamond Compressor, and I also was recently trying the Empress V2, which I don't have anymore, and the Keeley Plus, the newest one. So, well, just to say off the bat, these two are kind of like indispensable. They are fantastic in their own way, different. Diamond is really great too. So the Thorpy Fat General and the Diamond are both optical. I feel like the Thorpy Fat General can basically do what the Diamond can do if you put it in juicy mode. This knob functions as volume, this knob functions as what you'd call comp, and this knob functions as EQ. It's called like treble, sustain, and I don't know what that one says. Balance. And that's, so that functions really similarly. It's just on compressor, but when you do this, it's a blend, and then this becomes a mix knob, and it's kind of at you can't really alter the volume directly. You can, if you add sustain or compression, it adds some volume. And so you can control the volume kind of, but it's just a little bit over normal. It's like a tiny bit of boost, and it's just so beautiful. It just is a beautiful sound, and it's only 9 volts and still makes, it has 0 9-volt feel to it. I don't know how to describe it. If I run this at 18 volts, this one sounds, I think partially because it's letting natural stuff through, right? But somehow the design of this is just phenomenal. Again, like the Team Medic, it's especially phenomenal with kind of low gain Fendery, edge of breakup. That doesn't mean it doesn't sound good into higher gain or Marshall style amps, but it just has this kind of magic to it. So need this pedal. And then the Woodshed is different. It's very I like it more with some breakup to higher breakup, higher gain. Not high, I don't really play high gain, but higher gain for me. And it just puts the right stuff through for that. So on a clean or a really low gain, it's kind of might sound a little underwhelming compared to this, but then when you get into higher gain, it just, all the right frequencies are coming through. It compresses in a way that is very natural, but really punchy, and all the right kind of transients are jumping through. So completely different, but both like very, they don't feel like compression, although this one may a little bit, but it's like in a completely over bloomy way. Now the Diamond can't really approximate the Woodshed. Again, it sounds much more like this. It's a little harder, tighter, This one's a little more kind of natural somehow. Even running this at 18 volts, which I do prefer. And then the sustained Shaman is, it's closer to the Woodshed, but just not quite as amazing. It does have 2 channels, so you can have 2 different sounds, although all you can vary is attack and sustain. I wish they would actually put the volume and the blend as the 2 channels, because then you'd actually have like 2 real different options. But it's a cool pedal. I've had it for a long time. Now, as far as the Empress and the Keeley, they were both very nice, a little more clinical to me, a little less character. Like, these are actually like character pedals to me. They do something kind of magical. This one is a bit, it's character too, but it's a little tighter. And then the Empress and the Keeleys were kind of a little more on that. Oh, this is a compressor. Like, you just kind of hear it and it sounds like a compressor. All right, and then on to these drive pedals. So these 2 run at 18 volts. The 18 volts is awesome. It again opens them up. This unfortunately doesn't run at 18 volts. The original Timmy's did, but the MXR one only goes at 9 volts. A lot of people say if you have it in the middle position, which is the most dynamic, they can't really tell a difference. I've never had a regular Timmy, so I can't say. And then we just have a old tube screamer here, a Tumulus, which has a buffer that I don't like, and I don't like any buffer on clones. I've never tried the super expensive type of clones, but don't like the clone style buffer anyway. And it's a Love Pedal Amp 11, which is a really cool pedal. A lot of these have, like, their tone shaping is in that narrow band, the 9 volty band, like that bass and treble here don't get nearly as wide as a lot of these pedals. They're very cool, but I feel like they're more like amp to amp. Do you like it with this amp combination? Like, for instance, I love the King of Tone on the overdrive side into the twin sister, right? But I don't love it into the Tone King Imperial. It's not bad, I just don't love it, whereas I love it into the twin sister. But I feel like I can take this pedal and get something I love even a little more than Tone King. Now, of course, these have drive. These have, they have their own type of clipping. And if you like that type of clipping and you want to add that into your signal, you're going to need something like this. But as far as like tone shaping, that would be more like feel shaping and drive shaping. As far as tone shaping, they just have tone knobs, right? Or this has bass and treble, and this has bass and treble. So these are going to be more like situational and with your amp, and do you like it, and do you want to add drive, or do you just want to add boost? Because, you know, with these amps, I feel like they're so kind of magical that I would rather boost them and have them interact with the signal as opposed to introduce kind of other boost. At least to me, that's what sounds the best and is the most fun and dynamic and wonderful for me to play. So hopefully this is helpful, and yeah, bye-bye.